News broke not too long ago that this will be potentially Chris Paul's last year of his career, potentially a farewell tour. There's back and forth about it because apparently he also came out and said that he might be interested in play beyond this season, but CP3 is obviously towards the tail end of his career. Before we even get into this, because there's going to be a lot of criticism potentially in this video, I gotta say this. Shout out to Chris Paul, one of the greatest players I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. Not only just a future Hall of Famer, but I believe one of the top 10 point guards of all time. I truly believe that Chris Paul transcended so many different ways. Every franchise he went on got better. Saw some of the greatest success in these franchise histories as soon as he touched the floor for them. And so you gotta give credit where credit is due. However, while having these conversations, Kendrick Perkins decided to give his input, and I'm pretty sure they asked him about it. He claimed that Chris Paul is not a top 10 point guard of all time. So let's get into this.
CP3 is a top 15 greatest point guard of all time. I do not have him in my top 10. I do not have him in my top 10. I don't have CP3 ranked above Russell Westbrook. Like, did CP3 do a lot of things, change the franchise, win a lot of games and things? Yes, absolutely. I would never take that away from him. Since he was drafted with the New Orleans Pelicans, he changed that franchise. They were a winning organization, right? He goes to the Clippers, winning organization. Goes to the Phoenix Suns, winning organization. But when it comes down to rankings, you got to check those boxes and you got to have those accolades. And when I say accolades, yes, championships or finals MVP, obviously, but CP3 don't have one MVP. And I'm not trying to be critical of him. I'm not trying to downplay his career. CP3, the point guard, we came out of high school together. I battled against him in the AAU tournament, in the AAU system as a youngster. Much love, much respect. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's just top 15 greatest point guards of all time in my eyes. He's not in the top 10.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to get into the rankings. I'm just going to say this. There is a class, there's a tier. You think of where Rondo might be, where Derrick Rose might be, and a lot of his career was cut short, but he has an MVP and kind of, they talk about those prime Derrick Roses, where you start to look at like a Kyrie and what he's accomplished over his career, right? So when you start to look at it, I think there's like the Mount Rushmore is what I like to say. There's the Mount Rushmores of kind of modern day, and that's Magic. I would say John Stockton. I would put
This is worse. He's worse than Kendrick. This is worse.
I don't understand. Okay, bro. When it comes to discussing people's all-time rankings, y'all already know how I feel about this shit. I'm over the idea of like being critical of where you may have people, more so critical with your logic. Because at the end of the day, if it comes down to how you feel about a certain player because of boxes need to be checked off, even though throughout his career you believe that he should have had some of those boxes checked off. That's why I don't understand, like, these are, when people talk about, especially like an MVP, that is not your opinion. That is someone else's opinion. That is a collective of other people's opinion. But when that year was happening, that someone could or should won an MVP, what did you think of that person? And if a player didn't go on to win an MVP, but you thought that year they should have won an MVP, why does that then change your opinion because everybody else thought something else? That does not make any sense to me at all. And we were here in real time when Kendrick Perkins was pushing Chris Paul for MVP when he went to the Phoenix Suns. We were here when he was doing that. So I don't understand how your opinion on Chris Paul all of a sudden changes because he didn't finish with an MVP, not because you don't think that he should have won an MVP, but because everyone else who voted didn't think that. That to me does not make any sense.
Isaiah Thomas in that. And then, again, everybody can fill out the rest of their stuff. And then I think there's another tier. That's where you get into the Chauncey Billups. That's where you get into...
What? Not gonna lie. This is a very unserious video. So he has not said Steph yet. Still has not said yet, Steph.
Kyrie. That's where you get into a Rondo. That's where you get into a Russell Westbrook. That's where you get into a Chris Paul. These guys that are like,
no way! Bro, we're saying Rondo and Chris Paul are on the same level, bro? What are we doing right now?
I'm not ranking them on to fit. If
No,
you're
they're
saying
not.
top 15, that means that you're saying
No.
8 through 14 are like in the same. I'm not saying rank, but they're in the same class. They're comparable.
No. Russell Westbrook is in that class with John Stockton,
like
Gary
I said,
Payton.
you can
Hold
fill it
on,
out.
can we do this really
He's-
quick? Perk, will you give me your Mount Rushmore all-time point guards?
All-time point guards. I got Steph at one. And I know some people go say Steph is not a point guard. I don't give a fuck. Damn it, on paper he's a PG.
Oh, wow.
He's just that great because he changed the game forever. When you talk about a generational talent and we talk about these fucking small guards, Steph has changed the game. Like, Steph changed the game forever. I have Magic at 2. I have Isaiah Thomas at 3. I got John Stockton.
You
I'm going to go with the big O. I got Oscar.
Did you ask him for Mount Rushmore or top 5?
I asked for Mount Rushmore.
I would go with Oscar Robertson at number 4. But
So
at that number 5 spot, it's Russell Westbrook. I'm sorry. Averaging a triple-double, 4 seasons. Huh?
Listen.
okay. So if that's your criteria, that's your criteria. To me, if again you just sat there and said checking off boxes, but then you decided that it was okay for Russ not to check off the championship box. I don't know, but you got Steph 1, and also Isaiah Thomas never checked off the MVP box, but you have him 3rd over Oscar Robertson, who checked off both of the boxes. So again, this doesn't make any sense. This don't make any sense. But okay, I think in the other video though, he's going to go into explanation. So let's hear the explanation.
Perk, I'm going to give you a chance to explain yourself here, sir, because I cannot get on board with this one, my friend.
Well, what is it to explain when you talk about the all-time greats, right? I mean, it's a toss-up if you want to throw in John Stockton when it comes down to all-time point guards, right? I think you got to have some type of, of validation to get in the top 10. Right? In my top 10, I have John Stockton, I have Oscar Robertson, Magic Johnson, Steph Curry, Isaiah Thomas, Gary Payton, Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Steph Curry, right? Bob Cousy. And when you look at 9 out of these 10, they either have a championship or they have multiple MVPs or MVP, except for John Stockton, but he's the all-time leader in assists. So I couldn't put CP3 above him, but CP3 is in my top 15.
This is the part where you're losing me. So apparently, and to be fair, this isn't in order. So he didn't actually put it in order. This is the only problem I have with the argument to what Perk had to say. So let's look at this list. You're trying to convince me that MVPs and championships matter. But now all of a sudden, statistical excellence in terms of accumulating numbers, not even what your career average may have been, just strictly accumulating numbers. Because if I'm not mistaken, the career average of Stockton and Chris Paul is very similar. So it's just the accumulation of statistics. That is enough to put you in the top 10, despite the fact that Stockton was never even an MVP candidate, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. I think the highest Stockton might have been in the MVP race might have been like 7. He was never even a candidate, and he went 0 for 2 in the finals. Never even an MVP candidate, never won a championship, actually went 0 for 2 in the finals, can make the list over someone who at bare minimum was an MVP candidate. That makes no sense to me, but okay, fine. Then what you're also trying to convince me on this screen with this list is that Jason Kidd made it. Jason Kidd never won an MVP, but because he won a championship at the age of 37 when he was on that Dallas Mavericks team, now all of a sudden he's going to make the list. He makes the cut because he was on a team that won a championship. And there's the same thing to be said about Oscar Robertson as well. Maybe even Gary Payton as well, because GP doesn't have a MVP, went to the finals and lost. And the only time you're telling me when you saw GP out there, you were like, oh shit, he won in 2006. Now he's top 10. That's to where it don't make no sense. Bob Cousy in the league for years at a time doesn't win the MVP until Bill Russell gets on his team because they started winning enough games, and that's when the players are voting. And I highly doubt they were ever going to give it to a black player. But before then, Bob Cousy wasn't winning no MVPs, and he wasn't even making it deep into the postseason, let alone winning a championship. But he gets it because Bill Russell got drafted? Makes no sense. Stockton is on here because of statistical excellence, and never won a championship, never was an MVP candidate, but statistical excellence got him on the list. Gary Payton is on the list because he won a championship in 2006 when he was the ripe age of 37 years old, 1 year removed from him retiring. Kidd is on here, no MVP, but he won a championship when he was 36, 2 years before he retired. Bob Cousy's on here because he got the privilege to play with Bill Russell because he was on trajectory to never win an MVP nor never win a championship. So we're not even talking about like the best player on these teams. So that to me is where like you lose me with the logic. And then Steve Nash is on here, even though you've been on record several times saying that you don't think that he should have won those MVPs. If it's off of MVPs and championships, then why isn't Shea on this list? Shea just won an MVP and a championship and was the best player on the team. Finals MVP as well. So why wasn't he on this list? On some real shit, you would be better off putting Walt Frazier on this list over John Stockton because at least he checks off one of these boxes that you need to check off. CP3 is out there having the same MVP presence as Steve Nash when he was winning them. I guess all we see are numbers today, not impact on a group. Carry on. Yeah, we were there. We were there when he was pushing Chris Paul MVP propaganda. We were there when you were doing it. So who cares if he won the MVP or not? If you believe that he was supposed to win the MVP, what does it matter? Well, like genuinely speaking, what does it even matter?
CP3 above him, but CP3 is in my top 15. I think he's in that range of when you talk about a guy like Chauncey Billups, who just went to the Hall of Fame.
Oh my God.
When you look at a guy like Rajon Rondo, who might be knocking at the door of being in the Hall of Fame, that's why I put CP3 at.
This nigga just sat there and said that Rondo might be knocking at the door of a Hall of Fame and he's on the same tier with him? That makes no fucking sense. Bro, Rondo's not even based off of your own criteria. Rondo shouldn't even be top 25, my nigga. There's so many other players at the point guard position who either won it.
He has a championship.
No. Walt Frazier also has a championship. And Rondo has two, but Walt Frazier has a championship.
Oh yeah, he got 2 championships. My fault.
So Walt Frazier has a championship and played closer to an MVP caliber player than Rondo ever has. So why wouldn't he check off that list? Why wouldn't he be a part of it? If you're going off of Rondo's 2, well shit, Derek Fisher has 5. So why isn't he on that list? There's so many point guards that you could put on the list over some of these niggas. Drew Holiday has a championship. 2. He has 2. So why wouldn't he be on the list? You see how odd it gets? It gets real shaky. Rondo shouldn't be anywhere near close. There are players with better careers who have just as much success, but were a better presence on their championship teams.
Tony Parker, great name.
Tony Parker's another one. So how did Rondo jump all the way into a top 15 conversation when you have all these other players that fit this criteria that you have? It's your criteria. Have at it. Hey man, that's your criteria. But if that's your criteria, there's so many other players that fit that criteria. How are you bringing up these names but you're not bringing up Shea? The nigga that literally just won. Kyrie's another one. There's plenty of point guards who've won championships who have had bigger roles on their championship teams. Kyle Lowry's another name, actually. Damn. You can name off a lot of names who were better at winning, better players, higher contributors at winning a championship than Rondo was in 2008 and in 2020.
I'm going to assume that he thinks Jerry West is a shooting guard.
I'm going to assume that he thinks Jerry West is a shooting guard, yes. Dennis
Because
Johnson's another
position,
name.
he said he doesn't care. So I don't know.
He did say that as well.
Might even care. I mean,
Dennis Johnson is another one, actually. You can name so many names. Believing that Rondo is in the same tier with Chris Paul is crazy. Rondo's not even in the same tier as the niggas that we're naming right now.
I mean, listen, there's only one guy that you mentioned that had more All-NBA selections than Chris Paul, and that's Bob Cousy. As you also alluded to, number 2 all-time in assists, number 2 all-time in steals. And listen, this isn't any shade at any other guys we'd take off the list, but Chris Paul, he has to be stamped as a top 10 point guard. It's Park, I mean, when you think about point guard and the responsibilities of that player, organizing the offense, being a consistent voice, being a leader, having the ability to not only score himself but set up for others, play point of attack defense. He's one of the best guys when it comes to steals in NBA history. That is Chris Paul to a T, and being an extension of the coach on the floor. I mean, he has to be a top 10 point guard. I'm sorry.
No, so Chris is pound for pound. He's not the tallest guy in the world either. So you got to keep that in mind. He doesn't have Jason Kidd or Magic's height and size. But being second all time, Perk, I love you, my dog. Second all time in assists and steals.
Yeah.
That's both ends of the court.
Yep.
So I think that I'll move Cousy out of there. I know you're a Boston guy. I get that. I'm gonna move. Cousy only played against 7 other teams. I'm gonna move him out.
Oh, wow.
Russ, I know he was your teammate. Respect, but I got Chris in my top 10.
Park, last word on this.
I thought championships matter, and I thought MVPs matter, right? And
You have a nigga with neither one of them. You have a nigga on there with neither one of them. And if they matter, then there is a plethora of point guards who have championships and won championships at points in their careers that they were better than Gary Payton when he won and Jason Kidd when he won. And you don't have none of them on the list either.
And when you look at my list, obviously you have Isaiah Thomas, who was playing in the era and won championships when he was competing against Bird, Magic, and Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson. Name speaks for itself. Russell Westbrook, a guy that averaged 4 triple-doubles, had 4 triple-double seasons throughout his career with a MVP. So I mean, look. He's top 15 in my eyes, but it's your preference. Some people like to drink gin, some people like to drink Ciroc.
Yeah, Perk.
Some people like to drink tequila. They all get you drunk.
That normally goes over on me, but today it's not. Yeah, just so y'all know, because somebody asked. Yeah, Chris Paul is second in assists, and unless LeBron passes him, in all honesty, he's probably going to stay second in assists for a very, very long time, if not forever. And then he's also second in steals. Unless LeBron passes him, which even if LeBron plays for a few more years, I don't think he'll pass him. And to be fair to Stockton, the gap between him and Chris Paul on both of these lists is real. Like it's a very real gap. So I don't want to try to minimize that. But the truth of the matter is like I just don't understand the concept. And I understand again your logic of you got to check off my boxes, and MVPs and championships are one of the boxes that you have to check off. But brother, like you have Gary Payton on there when he won in 2006. You have when he was 37 years old. You have Jason Kidd on there when he won in 2011 when he was 36, 37. Like at the end of their careers when they weren't major contributors to those teams. Like Jason Kidd more than GP, but not a major contributor. There are other players throughout the course of NBA history who also just have a championship on their resume and not an MVP and were way larger contributors to their championship teams. Dennis Johnson is one. You can put him on the list because he's a Celtics guy. Has a Finals MVP. Walt Frazier is another one. Drew Holiday is another one. Like there's several other ones. And then for you to Kyle Lowry is another one. But then for you to bring up Rondo in the same tier as Chris Paul, that right there is fucking ridiculous because it goes against what you're saying. Rondo has 2 championships. That's why I put in there. Drew Holiday has 2, and Drew Holiday is a better player than Rondo. Walt Frazier has a championship. He's a better player than Rondo. Dennis Johnson has 3 championships. He's a better player than Rondo. Like these are all players that are better than Rondo.
I mean, but Rondo's a better pure point. You feel me? He's going to get his teammates involved.
He just sat there and said he didn't care about that because he put
For one person, not the rest of them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's his criteria.
True. But at the end of the day, like it's people have their own criteria. I kind of feel like this is like one of those times where you just want to have a take. You just got to have a take, and I'm going to get this take off. And I ain't going to lie, Perk, I feel that way as soon as you made this face right here. This face, let's let me know you wasn't a serious nigga when you said this. This face right here, this face, that's a face of a nigga that just wants to get a takeoff. You just want to get a takeoff, brother. That's it. You just want to get a takeoff. And I get it sometimes. I get it. You got to get the takeoff. They came and asked you for something, and you gave them what you gave them.